Hey there, rock and roll podcast fans. This is Mike Hoban. Welcome to Rat Tales, the podcast that brings you the music and stories of the Boston rock scene that grew out of the mid-'70s at the Rat and some of the other hellhole joints, each with their own sick charm. Hey there, Boston rock fans. Welcome to Rat Tales. We're here today with Steve Cataldo, founding member and frontman of the legendary rock band The Nervous Eaters, one of Boston's early practitioners of the new Boston rock sound that broke us out of AOR prison. Welcome to Rat Tales, Steve.
Thanks for having me here.
Nice to see you again for round two. We like to start with the basics. Where are you from? I know you're from the Cape. Why don't you tell us what your early years are like? How'd you grow up? Did you grow up in like a musical family or any entertainment? Or how'd you end up getting into music?
Okay, those are 5 questions.
Okay.
All right, let's go with the first one. I was born on Cape Cod, and I stayed there till high school. After high school.
What part?
West Barnstable.
Okay.
Barnstable, I guess, town of Barnstable. Went to Barnstable High School. And my mother was a singer in the USO. At the end of World War II, she was working in Washington. Secretary for Congress or something like that. And she sang in the canteen a little bit. But my father that way. He was in a recording studio there, recording the proceedings from the House, Senate, and Congress and stuff. So they met. He somehow persuaded her to come into the recording studio, where he had a trio, just happened to be there. And she sang a couple of songs, which I still have today. So it was kind of cool.
So you're born into the business.
Yeah, well, not really, but yeah, she was. My father was into recording and things like that, but he ended up having a different job, but it wasn't musical at all. But I was raised on Cape Cod, Massachusetts.
What town?
Hyannis.
Hyannis. Okay, so you're still where you're back to where it all started.
Kind of. The Kennedys were there in Hyannisport, and JFK had a few rallies at the Maritime Academy there, and the Armory, that's where it was. And so we used to run alongside his limousine, knock on the window. It was great. It was a great time as a kid. And I was an altar boy in a Catholic church, and JFK and Jackie used to come to the 10 o'clock Mass every Sunday that they were there on Cape Cod.
Right.
So he'd always come in and shake everybody's hand. So he shook his hand a bunch of times. And I was decimated when he was murdered.
Oh, God, yeah.
So, but at any rate. So I played in bands in junior high and high school. And after graduation.
Well, what kind of music were you playing when you were in high school? Or were you doing covers, I'm sure, but
sure.
I mean, what kind of music were you doing?
Link Wray, The Ventures. Beatles came along, we switched to the Beatles. And Tommy James, all that kind of stuff. Then I got into blues and started doing that. There was a kid down the street who played guitar who showed me some chords, and he had a Fender Stratocaster, which was really nice. I had a Kent, but I got a Strat later on.
Did you have like bands in high school? Did you play at like high school dances and stuff like that, or?
Yeah, we always played at the dancers, the Battle of the Bands. And one group we had was called Rigor Mortis and the Standstills. And there was another band called the Cobwebs, and we won the local Battle of the Bands there.
That's a great name.
It took us to a statewide Battle of the Bands in Lowell, and we came in the top 5.
Cool.
Which was pretty good for us. And that was it. We just kept on playing as many parties and graduation, all-night parties as we could. And after I graduated from high school, went to college for a couple of years, a local college. Then I went to Boston and the North Shore to play rock and roll with Richie Bartlett and Mike Gerard.
So let's go back to when's the first. Okay, what did you listen to when you were growing up?
Well, my dad had quite a collection of music up in the attic, and at a certain age, I don't know, probably 5 or so, I discovered it. I discovered the old Bogan stereo he had up there, and I'd go through the different records, and the gamut was from Nutcracker to Nelson Eddy to some doo-wop stuff, like a song called Mumbles, which would fit in today. Sons of the Pioneers. And then I came across some Blues 78, some Muddy Waters, and that was great. And so I had quite a variety.
So that's when you were a young kid. When you start listening to the radio, what are you listening to? Is it the 50s then? Early 60s?
Yeah. Late 50s, early 60s. A neighbor was getting rid of their 45 collection and moving away, and gave them to me. And I just thought that was great because I was already playing these 33, 78 records, mostly 78s. And but the Bogan also played 45s, little spindle.
Yeah.
And she had all great stuff like Jerry Lee Lewis and Little Richard and stuff like that. We had a record store on Main Street called the Record Room. Anybody that's from Cape Cod will remember that. It started off with a little kind of grass hut. I bought New Orleans, and that was by Gary U.S. Bonds. And I played that thing to death. And the next album I got was Link Ray. And I played that to death. I still have it. It plays, kind of. And I just love Link. It's great. That's why I get the 2-chord, 3-chord thing, you know, mostly from him. And a lot of instrumentalists, Ventures, Dick Dale. And then the Beatles came in and everything changed. It was great. You know, it was Beatles, Rolling Stones, British Invasion, Them, which that was a great group, and the Searchers.
Now, who was in them again? Just remind me, I've forgotten.
Van Morrison.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah. He was into the blues. They did a lot of blues on that first record, Baby Please Don't Go, which we do as an encore sometimes. And now. And so... Then the Surf Nantasket moved into Hyannis and bought a gigantic, well, it was already there. It was a gigantic building. And a lot of groups came in there. That and the Go-Go was a club that was in Yarmouth. And I went to it religiously with my friend Al Hebditch. And we saw everybody. The Animals, Sam the Sham, a lot of Boston groups. Bold, The Ones, Lovelace Lads, which a guy named Swine was in, and his brother was in the Chartbusters, played bass, and
Robin Lane's group.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so yeah, Cape Cod was great. It wasn't just this little old fishing village.
Those are some pretty big names. The
Yeah.
Animals and Sam the Sham. That's really big time. So you're in high school when this is going on. When did you pick up an instrument? When did you, form your first band and all that? How'd you?
Well, as soon as I started listening to Dick Dale, I was probably 12. I started playing acoustic guitar, trying to get somebody to teach me chords and stuff. There was a kid down the street who had a Fender Stratocaster, which was beautiful, and he showed me some stuff, but younger guys like that, they don't have too much patience, you know, and you're a young kid, get out of here. So I didn't really know how to tune it, and I just mostly made up a lot of music, just making it up, banging on it, stuff. But after a while, I learned how to play. I had some other people that would take a minute and show me some chords. When I was in junior high, they would have junior high school dances, and Teddy and his name might have been Teddy. I don't know. Could have been Bob. And the Upsetters. They were the Upsetters at any rate. And they had, Fender Stratocasters, Fender basses, and basically they were an instrumental band. But they had a couple of, a guy and two girl backup singers. And they did a lot of songs of the day, and they were pretty cool. Anyways, I saw that and went, wow, wanted to do that. Then the JCs started having Battle of the Bands down there.
Yep.
We got into that after we formed a band, but I went to it before I actually had a band, and saw a lot of great Cape Cod groups, or Wareham and from Plymouth that you never knew were there. And it was great, really mind-blowing, and it got your fire going, got my fire going anyways.
So what was your first band?
Holy smokes. One of the early bands was Rigor Mortis and the Standstills. I was the lead singer, I guess. And three brothers played guitar and stuff. And after that, I left that and formed a group called the Cobwebs with my friend Alan Hebditch and some other friends from high school, junior high. And we won a couple of Battle of the Bands. And then we kept on going in high school.
Were you playing high school dances and stuff like that? Or?
All the time, yeah. The proms, the midnight parties, we'd play. That was a big deal for us.
Good way to meet girls?
Yeah. Yeah.
So you're get out of high school. You're still living in Barnstable. What do you do next?
Well, I get out of school, and I just thought of this show that we did in high school at a local teenage club in Dennis. And I brought a girl there along with me. And for some reason, she told one of the rockers, the guys with the hair slicked back and everything, that I could beat him up. And I'm nonviolent, really. So my drummer was this huge dude. And the keyboard player, Steve Pinney, was a big, tall guy as well. And Al Hebdis was on the other side. And he just walks up on stage, and now there's the police there and stuff, and the owner of this JC Hall and stuff. And he says, "Hey, your girlfriend out there says you can beat me up." I said, "Well, A, she's not my girlfriend, and B, I don't know what she's talking about, but So he starts untuning my guitar on stage. I think I let him do a couple of strings before he hit his hand away. I'm looking at the drummer like he's massive. I'm going, Dave, come on up, BT. But Dave was just smiling, going. And finally the police came up and took the guy away. But
that's rock and roll.
That's rock and roll. It always stuck in my mind.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah. But anyways, I left the Cape after that and moved up to the North Shore because Nantasket Beach, the Surf Nantasket, had the Surf Nantasket, the Surf Hyannis, and the Surf Salisbury Beach. They had a lot of bands.
Yep.
The Pilgrims, Techniques, Front Page Review, which I joined.
The Techniques, they played at my high school.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Wow, yeah. We played everywhere. High schools, colleges, Melody Tent, with the opening for all kinds of groups. They really booked you well. And so the Surf and Hyannis brought the bands to all three Surfs, but Tommy James, Humble Pie, the Birds,
Wow.
Love and Spoonful. I get to see all those groups because I was actually employed by the Surf in one of their bands, so you could meet them and talk to them. It was great, just great. And so the Front Page Review played everywhere.
That was your first band coming out of high school?
Yeah, with them. And we did lots and lots of gigs and made friends with everybody. Some of the guys in Pilgrims went on to join Sha-Na-Na, create Sha-Na-Na.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I was just thinking while you were talking, though, like, not only are you playing, you're a post-high school guy, but you're getting introduced to, like, people that are name bands already. And it's like, that's pretty impressive. Does that help forge your idea, like, hey, this can actually be a career?
You know, I never thought of that. I just knew I wanted to play guitar and get on stage and play. And the Front Page Review, we were doing Songs of the Day by Cream and stuff like that. We were that type of band. Each band had its own thing.
Blues-based kind of rock and roll?
Yeah. Some bands were a soul band. Other bands were like top 40.
Yeah.
And we were more Hendrix, Cream, stuff like that.
You psychedelic at all?
Yeah, we started
a lot of psychedelic jamming, which is probably great if you're a guitar player.
Well, we played with opened up for Strawberry Alarm Clock and Vanilla Fudge and stuff like that. So
wow.
Yeah, and so I was starting to write psychedelic music.
Yeah.
Which was pretty corny.
Do you have any of it? Do you have any ones that you remember, or do you have them anywhere?
Yeah.
So Lenny can put them on.
Well, they're on a CD that was released by Alan Lober called The Front Page Review, the name of the
Yep.
And it has the songs that he tried to shop at that time, but the psychedelic thing was on its way out.
Yeah.
He had groups like Orpheus.
Yep.
Don't Have the Time to Tell You. That was a big hit.
That was the great. I mean, I still think that's that's like one of my favorite pop songs still.
Yeah, yeah.
And they never really came out of the New England or East Coast. That was never like a national hit or anything, right?
Yeah, it's too bad. You think somebody would have covered that song? That's not a bad idea, I guess. But yeah, so the psychedelic thing came and went. And after I left the Front Page Review, I put some money together and went down to New York with a demo tape I had made at home of songs that weren't quite psychedelic. It was the next thing that was happening in music. And I'd go from record company to record company in New York City, and they'd say, well, do you have an appointment? I'd say, gee, an appointment? I have to have an appointment? Duh. And finally, about the last one, I was like really bumming out. And the secretary there, she felt bad for me. She goes, well, just wait 1 minute, and I'll see if somebody can listen to you. And some of the staff producers were there, and they listened to it, and they really liked it. And they said, well, we'll get a hold of you. 2 days later, the guys at ABC Paramount called me and said, we'll sign you.
Wow.
Yeah. But I didn't have a manager.
No agent or anything.
I didn't have an agent. I didn't have a manager. Even my father didn't say, son, try to get a couple of $1,000 out of him, will you? And I just said, oh, wow, great. When should I be there?
Yeah.
So I went down, did the record. And
what's the name of the record?
St. Stephen.
Oh, yeah, okay.
The producer was a smart guy. He said, you need a rock and roll moniker. You have to have a name, whether it's Johnny Rock, or Bobby Sun or whatever it is. So he gave me St. Stephen. And that was the name of the record. The thing about having a rock name is really important. Andy Paley was hip to that stuff. And I just kept my name, Steve Cataldo, but it probably would have been smart to be like Johnny Rock or something like that, But I lived in Chicago for quite a while and was playing with a lot of blues bands. And I was at Buddy Guy's Club one night playing with Junior Wells.
You were?
Yeah.
Wow.
Up on just stage. A lot of people come in and jam, all kinds of different musicians and stuff. So they were introducing the band as they went around the bandstand, and Alligator Slim on drums. You know, Lightning Jones on bass, and then it came to me and said, and Steve on guitar.
A guy named Steve on guitar.
I really wanted to just go whoop and get out of there. So you would have thought that I would have learned a lesson there, but no. No, I just kept my name. And it actually did better about 20 years later in Europe, Italy, Spain, all over the, places like that, Japan, than it did when it came out. BCN played a couple of tunes, but, if people aren't, the phones aren't ringing off the wall.
Yeah.
When you're saying, hey, play that song again.
What year do you
forget
think
about
this?
it.
What year was this? Do you think?
Ooh, man.
Early BCN days, right?
Yes, you're talking 1970.
Okay. Right when they switched over.
Yeah, they were in the old place.
Yeah.
By the bus station,
Yeah.
and you could walk right up there and hang out. And I walked up there with my record. I just made a record. Yeah, okay. We didn't receive it from your agent or anything. My agent, yeah, he's in Florida.
Yeah.
But I'll leave this with you, okay? And when I was listening to the station all the time to see if they'd play it. They did play it a couple of times. It was a thrill.
Oh, that's great. What was your favorite cut off that record? What do you think? If you wanted to hear something that was typical, can you think of a song? That
We did a song called Bright Lights. That was pretty good.
City lover, wooden rose in your mind, unrest brings your headlines, through the deserts don't lead the blind.
And but it was pretty. It wasn't very memorable.
No.
Record, kind of came and went.
So that doesn't pan out the way you'd like it to. So what's next? I mean, so you're a solo guy now. So what's your next? What do you do next? Front page is in the rearview mirror.
Yeah, they got a new lead singer. His name was Stevie High. They made an album called Brother Fox, which I thought was really weird because they were, 4 white guys or 5 white guys with a black lead singer. But nobody seemed to bother him about it. And the record had a couple of good songs on it. But again, they had a good manager who later went on to work for Casablanca Records, Brian Interlin. But he didn't move it very well. And I spent some time with Brian and learned a little bit about the music business, and that was kind of cool. And I started getting into blues after that. And there was a couple of blues bands in town. And tried out for some of them and didn't.
Singer and guitarist?
Yeah.
Okay.
But they had guys who were a little further along into it than I was at that time, and they took them. I went back to the Cape and played in a couple of different local groups. And
Did you have a job? I mean, did you go back to like having a day job or?
I tried not to, but I did. I worked at this office house fitting place for a while, delivering and setting up file cabinets and things like that. I think I washed dishes once at Wimpy's in Osterville, and that lasted about 2 hours. This sucks. I left that big time with my pal, the organist, who got me the job. He was a hardworking guy. He went on to the University of Seattle, as well as MIT. He was an architect. He is an architect. And we did this gigantic road trip, this once-in-a-lifetime road trip from Seattle down to San Diego to see some musician friends of ours. And then we went back. We thumbed from
Yep.
Seattle to San Diego.
For the young
and
people,
back.
that means you literally put your thumb out on the side of the road. A car would pick you up and take you where you were going.
Yeah. And we got through the snowy mountainous regions of Northern California. And then we got to where it was warmer. You'd thumb during the day. It started to get night. You'd find a place to go into the bushes and sleep. You get up in the morning, thumb to the nearest town, have breakfast, and get back on the road. We get picked up by some wild characters. Full moon, zigzagging around Big Sur, heading towards San Diego. And I don't even know the guy. There's two other guys in the car, and we get in, and didn't really talk much. About 5 hours later, we were in Los Angeles, and then made our way down to San Diego and back. And I think I brought a guitar along with me. Believe it or not, I was thumbing with the silly guitar, and got to San Diego and sold it. So we got some money to get back, which was too bad because the thing would probably be worth about $30,000 today. Duh.
So you're not really playing right now. So when does the next thing happen to you after the blues and after your trips and stuff like that? What do you?
Yeah, that's a really good question. That's when I get up to the North Shore, and I
Okay.
meet Jeff Wilkinson. And
Jeff, he's the drummer?
yeah, Jeff Wilkinson and Rob Skeen. And the reason I got back there is because Richie, who was in Brother Fox, that band had finished up. And so he was just bouncing around doing nothing. And I called him up, said, "What are you doing?" He said, "Well, come up here and hang out with us." And I did, and I got up there, and I think I was bouncing from somebody's house to somebody's house.
Yeah,
before
couch surfing?
before I got a small apartment from this really nice guy, Stanley Poirier. And Rich had the apartment downstairs, and I had the apartment above him. And we formed a group called the Rhythm A's.
Rhythm A's, yep.
It was short for
It's in my
something
notes.
else. So because we didn't get much work with the first name we used. And Mike Gerard was the singer. And we did mostly covers and played around the North Shore area.
What kind of songs were you playing? Do you remember what the kind of typical set list was? Or
Kinks, Hendrix, stuff like that, whatever it is. We wrote some songs, rearranged some songs originally. And we did a club, it was really like a school or something, school dance. It was an anti-drug dance. And somehow before we went on, we had done one show there and straight.
Yeah.
And the guy liked us a lot and hired us back. Months later, we came in. And Jeff, I think, had some magic beans in his pocket. I thought it was something that would make you warm and fuzzy. But instead, it took me to Planet 25. The worm's going like this, and everything seems to be swirling like that. And I could kind of feel the strings going through my fingers and stuff. And I'm looking at everybody, and they're laughing and just staring at me. And I started to feel like there was pressure on my head, pushing my head down. And the fellow that was running the anti-drug dance knew right away that something was wrong.
you were
with
not
us.
the person to be
No.
leading the anti-drug crusade.
He let us finish up the set and then kind of said, "Could you leave?"
Too bad you weren't playing psychedelic music then.
Yeah. I don't think we could have got through it, You just stop playing and look at your amplifier and, I wonder what that is.
Oh, that's hilarious.
It was. So we kind of straightened up after that and a little more, we were more serious.
Did that band have a name?
That was the Rhythm A's. It then later
Still the Rhythm A's.
well,
okay.
then it changed into Damp Stance. Jeff usually came up with these names. And then I became friends with Tony Cagnina. He was a local harmonica player, outstanding harp player. I love Paul Butterfield
Yeah.
and everybody in that band, and Tony was really close to Paul Butterfield as far as excellence. He was really melodic. He put it into 2 amps with a Echoplex in each, playing in stereo with echo. And he started getting us jobs all over the place in blues clubs. And we got hired by this one elderly lady. She'd probably kill me if she heard that. Nice lady who ran the club.
She was probably 45 then when you were in your
Yeah,
20s.
yeah. It's on the Lenway. And we did, I think, 5 to 6 sets, 7 days a week.
Wow.
Yeah. So, I mean, when we heard about the Beatles, playing in Hamburg, doing 10 sets a night or whatever it was, we could understand because it really sharpened your game. So we all became pretty good players out of that. We some of the guys left and formed the Fools, and Jeff and I and Rob formed the Psychopunks.
The Psychopunks?
Yeah.
What year do you think this is?
Oh man, 73.
Okay.
And that's when we heard that Willie was playing at Sandy's in Beverly. And I said to the guys, I said, man, we got to go down there and see Willie. I mean, this guy's great. I saw him in The Lost, at the Surf, and he's really good. So he was playing with this little piano that had a little rhythm machine in it.
Yeah.
And that was his drummer. And he was doing all the songs that he wrote for that ended up being the first Boom Boom record. So we learned all those songs.
Just him on keyboard?
That's it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So we came up and said, hey, man, we got this group, and we'd like to back you up. Now, we could have sucked, but Willie's just game to do anything.
Yeah.
Man. He's just a rock and roller. So he lived in Newton, and he didn't have a car. So we'd drive up there, pick him up, take him back to Beverly to where we rehearsed in Rob's basement. And we started to learn all his arrangements and make arrangements of his songs. And we played some North Shore clubs with him. And
So you were Willie Alexander's band at one point?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. And
But
then
is it just Willie Alexander, no Boom Boom? You're not the Boom Boom band. You're
No.
just Willie Alexander and company.
Willie
right?
Loco.
Okay.
It was just Willie Loco. That was it.
Yeah.
And after that, we formed, the Rats started happening. And I think I left for a little while and went on the road with a few other groups and came back. And Jeff and Rob were playing with Mickey Clean
Yep.
in the Mez. And I saw the Rat thing happen. I said, wow, this is really cool. Original music, man.
This is like 75, 76
No,
maybe?
this is 74.
74, really? Okay.
That we were writing music as a trio in Rob's basement after Willie had left. And then we came in and to the Rat and met everybody. And Jeff and Rob already knew the bouncers and Jimmy Harold and stuff. And I made friends with Jimmy. We hit it off right away. And he just liked us. He just liked the Eaters, man. And by then we were the Nervous Eaters.
My girlfriend asked me last night, she goes, the Nervous Eaters? Where did they get that name?
Everybody asks us.
You have to. It's a standard Nervous Eaters interview question.
Well, we rehearsed a lot in Rob's basement. His parents went to work during the day, so we'd play all day long practicing, writing songs and whatever. But we also did a lot of rehearsing in Jeff's basement. And his mother, Florence, was a wonderful person. So was his father. And her brothers were musicians in the 1920s and kept the family alive. So she liked musicians. And we'd come up, we'd be taking a break showing somebody chords a song. One guy would go up and get a sandwich and come down. He would learn the other part. The other guy would go up and get something. She said, listen, will you guys stop coming up one at a time? Can you're a bunch of nervous eaters. Come up at the same time, and I'll make you dinner. So we used that. It stuck.
Very distinctive. I mean, this not like anybody else's name, that's for sure. So you guys start. Oh, I meant to ask you. Did you ever have a day job, or you've been a musician, working musician your whole life?
Well, these days I work at a college, part-time in IT, and write songs the rest of the time. Back then, we worked in Ipswich, I think, all of us, in this leather company, but not very long. We just said, let's just try playing a lot. So we started booking ourselves into clubs and kept alive that way for quite a while.
Wow, I think that's incomprehensible now that anybody could like live in Alston and not have a job, and like, no matter how good the band was, how often you're getting booked.
Yeah, it's not like the old days, that's for sure. But if you're lucky enough to have something that clicks on the radio, then you could do it.
Well, there's a lot of things that are different than the old days. I mean, every time I think about like even the 60s especially, people could walk in, like you said, you went knocking on doors to see if you could get people to listen to your songs. That's not that far out of like what like Neil Diamond and people like that were doing back in the day, I don't think, when they were just regular songwriters and Carole King.
Oh, yeah.
And even the way the records got produced, they were just some shithole studio, and it would still have pretty decent production values, and it'd still be records that could get played, on the radio, or at least on BCN or something anyway.
Yeah, if you've got a good talent for writing material, and you can write a really good song, I think it'll happen for you, no matter where you are, who you are.
Even now?
Even now, sure.
Really?
Yeah, I think so. But a lot of mediocre stuff out there. I don't want to get into a gender thing with girl singers, but there's a lot of female pop.
Yep.
And they're written by production companies.
Yeah.
And
male songwriters writing for women, right?
Yeah, and there are a lot of boy bands too.
Yeah.
Korean,
K-pop.
South Korean rock is really big. They're just annihilating the world with their music. In a good way.
Yeah. So Mickey Clean and the Mez is the group that you were with first, and then that just morphed into Nervous Eaters.
Well, Jeff and Rob were with Mickey Clean. I
Yeah.
wasn't. I was doing different things, but I came back and saw what was going on.
Yep.
And they played with Mickey sometimes they didn't. I think he got another band after that. And we stepped up our rehearsals again in Rob's basement. I was writing a lot, like Loretta and stuff like that.
My favorite.
And
we play it. My band plays Loretta. We started playing it in '95. We just started playing it again like a year ago. So when did things start like popping for you? Does the Rat scene start to develop while you're there?
Yes, Jimmy Harrell liked the band a lot, and we liked Jimmy. We liked everybody at the Rat. We were great friends with everybody. We were rehearsing upstairs in the weight room. And Jimmy took us out to a recording studio in Maynard, Massachusetts, a northern recording studio. We ended up recording there a lot. And we did Loretta and Just Head there. And Jimmy had a production team that pushed it on college radio.
Oh.
So we got a lot of airtime off of Loretta.
You got a real lot of, like I said, that was one of my favorite songs at the time because it was so different than anything else.
Yeah, thank you. It took us all over the place, We went down to New York and Detroit and everywhere.
That was back in the day when you could actually have without having a major record company behind you, right? Mm. It's really, obviously it changed quite a bit then, but that's also when local radio, COZ, WBCN, all those radio stations would play a lot of local stuff. I mean, that's how I learned about a lot of bands that never made it out of even a region, like say the Boston, like even like Orpheus, that was back in the '60s. But a lot of that stuff, a lot of the local bands were getting a lot of airplay on BCN. I don't know, not just on Nocturnal Emissions, but in regular rotation when they started playing like alternative rock in the early '80s, I think.
Yeah, what a kick it was to hear it on Oedipus's show. Because I think between Oedipus, Miss Lynn, and Paul, the Boston Groupie News, and Jimmy Harold, that's how the scene happened. They propelled it. They
And
created
Oedipus
it.
was at TBS then, later to become NBR, right?
Right, at MIT. At
Yeah.
MIT. I was a DJ there for a while.
That's where I got my start in radio.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
I guess so did
I was a
I.
comedian, though.
Yeah. I had a show called Malfunction. And I did all kinds of stuff. I had musicians come in and play. And
That station is huge in Boston rock and roll.
yeah.
I mean, it's the rock and roll, between the Early Risers Club and the Breakfast of Champions and all that, and then all the other weird stuff they do during the course of the day. But it really is the best station. Usually, I have my WMBR T-shirt on when I'm doing this gig.
Wow. Great.
So you're starting to play with the Nervous Eaters. You're doing a gig at MIT as a DJ, Malfunction.
Yep.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
So you're in the middle, and you're really like one of the original Rat people, because Mickey Clean and the Mez, that's where they usually start dating it, I think. So
Yeah. When you're that age, everybody that had bands and stuff, they had just so much energy.
yeah.
You could do 5 things in a day. Go on a radio, go rehearse with this band, go drive cab, do something. I mean, you're just like pulsing. And so Jimmy took us on, became the manager, took us to Northern Studios in Maynard, gigantic room. And we recorded a lot of songs, but the songs that we kept was Loretta and then Just Head. I'm sure there were a multi-track 2-inch tapes, which ended up in some guy's garage that Northern Studios knew. They didn't want to keep them there. This guy must have been a friend of theirs. I'll store them in my garage, where they all got all moldy,
Yeah.
crumbled. And it was just about every group that recorded there that was at the Rat ended up going out there, and their master tapes just crumbled. That's it. And it's too
God.
bad, man. There's a lot of great stuff. It's just poof.
So you're making demos out there now. These things, do they get pressed into records? Because before you made your the yellow record, the one with who?
The Record of Death.
Yeah,
Yes.
the Record of Death. We'll get into that in a second. But so you guys are doing like demos for the radio, so you get played on BCN and stuff. That's where I first heard it.
Yeah.
And like obviously TBS and I don't know what other college stations were.
Well,
CBC.
thank God for Oedipus.
Yeah.
You know, he was really pushing it. Once people saw that he was reporting these songs on the college tip sheet across the country, the colleges were picking it up and playing it. So every city at that time had their own scene developing. It just didn't start in Boston or New York. It was happening everywhere.
Yeah.
Every like major city across the country.
Do you think that whole change, like that switch over to like garage and then eventually what they'd call punk, even though I know a lot of you guys don't like that term, because to me it's more like garage music anyway, but do you think it's because it was like a response to the kind of what I would say kind of boring music, the AOR stuff, groups like Foreigner and stuff like that? Not that I don't think those guys are good songwriters, but the energy just wasn't like real to me. So do you think that whole scene came out of like people just being tired of the old sort of classic hit stuff?
Well, guys like Willie showed everybody that you could take a 4-track or a stereo 2-track, go into a living room, just set up a couple of mics like they used to do in the old days, drag it around till it sounded good, record it, and then take it someplace and print it out. And then slap a label on it, get somebody at a pressing plant to give you 200 or 300 45s, which you could give to a radio station or put in a mailer and send it to different stations, because some stations, they were looking for stuff to play.
Yeah.
You know, the guys have a show, a punk show or a new wave show or something, and they're just looking for more stuff. Even now, college stations like Bumblebee Radio and stuff like that. I mean, people are sending him stuff all the time. Christine Eck, and he just plays it.
So who are the other people that helped you out? I remember hearing some of the other guys talk about Max Ann at from BCN. She was a big supporter of you guys in the beginning, right?
Yes, she worked at BCN. Later on, she got picked up by a record label, and she was starting to help musicians, breaking the acts, getting them signed. She helped us get signed when we did demos with Rick Ocasek, again at Northern Studios in Maynard. And she got us hooked up with Elektra and unfortunately Harry Maslin, who's a really nice guy, but he didn't have any understanding of the band. And our management at the time didn't jump in and say, Steve, don't do this. But Jonathan Paley and Andy Paley, the Baileys were with us at that time. Andy was playing piano. Jonathan was playing guitar and singing. He said, "This isn't
the Nervous Eaters."
Yeah. We were in California making that record. And they said, this probably isn't going to be a good thing. But I just wasn't bright enough to see it. Because what we should have done, in hindsight, as soon as we saw that he had no idea what he was doing, because he played his demos, he did the Bay City Rollers, he worked with Bowie and Lenny, and we just thought, well, this guy's got to know what he's doing.
Yep.
And but unfortunately, also worked with Air Supply, so it wasn't a good thing. What we should have done was taken the money back to Boston, built our own studio, done our basic tracks there, and overdubs, and then taking it to some good producer, have him mix it, and then put it out that
Someone
way.
who understood you. Because,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how you could listen to the demos that you guys had, or another thing that I highly recommend. One, Eaterville, Volume 1. They have all these, it's very, very, I'm a Degenerate, Fish, Stiletto.
Yeah.
All those songs are on there. And, like, I have this in my notes. It said, like, a lot of guys say you never really like the punk label, but there's a song, Stiletto. You know, that's pretty punky.
I'm a degenerate, and I'm proud. I'm proud of having no education.
You know, and then some of the other songs. What's the one that you and I were talking about right before we went on air? Last Chance.
Yeah.
That's absolutely brilliant song. It's, you know, maybe Stones influence, maybe garagey, but absolutely brilliant song.
And she said, yes, I love you. Do anything for your love. She said,
And then, as someone who bought your record, you know, Loretta, they did a really good job on Loretta, I think.
when I talk to Loretta, cool slacks and sweater. When I talk to Loretta, she hugs me sweet and low. When I talk to Loretta, her lips never let me go. When I talk to Loretta, well, she makes me feel like number one. When I talk to Loretta, she makes me feel like number one.
But a lot of the other songs I listened to, I went back and got it because I bought that record, And I went back and listened, and I just went, a lot of this sounds like it could be on an easy listening station. And I'm there like, this is nothing like, it's like going to see the Sex Pistols and watching them do like, Frank Sinatra covers or something. Actually, they did do a Frank Sinatra cover. I rescind that, but yeah, it was not. They just like totally missed the boat on that. So that had to be real disappointing for you guys.
Yeah, unfortunately, the guys from Air Supply would come through there in that Maslin studio, and that should have told us something right there. Hello, run away. But And
you were young too, right? I mean, it's like you didn't
young and
have the
stupid.
savvy, yeah.
But we had enough experience.
How does the whole record deal come in? When Rick Ocasek did your demo, I guess.
Right, we were back at Northern Studios again. Rick Ocasek produced it. I was becoming pretty good friends with Rick, and some of the Cars came in and played on it. We should have released that demo as the record. Because the producer, who was a nice guy, Harry Maslin, we had listened to his recordings, which he did Young Americans with Bowie and John Lennon. And no, that was Fame. But he did Young Americans and Fame as well, I think. Anyways, we said, okay, well, if he did this, he's got to be good. But he also did groups like Air Supply, which was 1,000,000 miles away from us. So that didn't really work out too well. So if we had done the Rick sessions, we would have been much better off. There wasn't any sessions where we went into a sound stage and he listened to us. We worked out stuff as a producer would do. None of that. Just came in and recorded. And and like I said, he applied the Air Supply
formula
blueprint on us, which didn't work at all. And some of the guys were complaining about I should have listened to him, but I thought it was going to be all right. But it was awful. Like the Pretenders were in town, and I was talking to a couple of them, saying, well, come on over and play on the record or something, or hang out with us or whatever. But they were, just too busy doing their own thing, trying to get this or that. And had they come over, they probably would have listened to it and said, what the hell's you guys doing?
Because they knew you guys. You had played with the Pretenders before on the road, right?
Many gigs with them, yeah.
So they knew you. They knew that they would have been able to. That's what it takes. Somebody from the outside sometimes to say, like, what the hell's wrong with you?
Yeah, or if we're doing it in New York or something and Rick Hart had walked in, he'd have gone out of his mind. Because later on, he saved our butts by doing Hot Steel and Acid. He resurrected us. Let's go in and make the record you should have made. And we did, Hot Steel and Acid. And it was a great record. Love it. It was a good record, and we picked up mileage again from that and started coming to our senses. Because he's a great producer, a good guy, attention to detail, and he taught us that.
That's really. Oh, I know one of the things I wanted to bring up. It's like JJ said the same thing, that you don't really like the label of punk, because you said, like, we're a garage band, we're a hard rock, we're a rock and roll band. That's who we are, and I get that. But one of the things that I was thinking to myself, if a guy didn't want, like, I'm a degenerate. You literally talk about sticking a stiletto up someone's asshole.
Yeah, I know.
So I'm there like, yeah, that's a little punky. Yeah. And then Fish, I think it's got a little of that punky edge, sort of like almost like that Unnatural Acts, funny / mildly violent, kind of like crazy.
But don't you get so uptight and lay off on your attack, good God, because you smell like this. I'm pretty baby, see you. You smell like this. I say, I don't like it like this. No, honey, you smell like this.
So I can see that sort of punky label. It's like, and it's certainly out of the mainstream. It's like, there used to be a show on NBR called No Commercial Potential. And, some of those songs would be there, but they would also be the songs that people would want to hear when they saw you play live. So,
It was like smoking behind the barn or something, or swearing, or
Yeah.
people like that. At that time, for
Yeah.
a little while, when we realized this might not be a real career building move. Some of these songs, so we still play Shit for Brains every once in a while.
Yeah.
Autobiographical. So, but the rest of them would kind of toned that down a little bit.
You guys were a great live band too. One of the things I would say, so when I was doing research, one of the things I found this tape. Ken Shelton introduced you at the Rat, WCOZ. It's a radio station that no longer exists. It was a WBCN competitor back in the day, and just it's just live at the Rat, WCOZ. Just Google that, pull it up on YouTube, and it just sizzles. It's like rock and roll. It's just brilliant. That's what you guys sound like live.
It's the Nervous Eaters on COZ Playback.
Even before you did the, you said earlier when you did while you were doing the record, and before you had already been touring with, I think you said Iggy and the Pretenders, and I forget who else. I can't even find my notes. Iggy, the Police, the Ramones, Damned. I mean, you were already playing at a level with a bunch of bands that had really successful careers.
Well, what happened there was the Yellow album from Def hadn't come out yet. It was just word of mouth. Eaters on Elektra Records, blah, blah, blah. And many of the groups that got signed, whether their record turned out to be great or not, had that interim period where it's coming out, it's going to be cool, and your management got you on good shows. So we got on the road for Jay Giles and doing shows with them, a lot of shows with the Ramones and the Pretenders, while that period lasted until that a record was sent to radio stations. And we went in to do a luncheon promo at BCN, and we saw our record in the bin. And not Mark Parento, but the guy that had the breakfast show there.
Ken Shelton?
No.
Charles Luckwood.
Charles Luckwood.
Yeah.
Excuse me, Charles, for
Jesus.
spacing out on your names. God bless him. He had written on it, too many songs. This album isn't going anywhere.
Whoa.
Yeah. So all the other DJs are going to come in and pick it up and go, oh, see, isn't going anywhere. Okay. So, there was a kiss of death there. So.
And Loretta had been in rotation when it was a demo or a 45 back in the day, right?
Yeah, back in the day. Yeah.
Okay.
So.
That's how I knew about you. Well, plus I'd seen you.
Unfortunately, when the record came out, Elektra had a production meeting, and our record came out simultaneously as the Cars and another group from the Midwest called the Kings. The Kings, Kings, and then us. And we were the low on the totem pole because they probably didn't hear anything in the record. So, and those other groups were bigger. So they ended up pushing them and giving them lots of promotion where we didn't get that.
Yep.
But we did get a lot of gigs.
So did you, any great stories from the road or anything?
Well, you were talking about the Split Ends. And we played in Buffalo, maybe, at Sam's Club. Could have been Albany. And we did the show, and that went well with the Split Ends. They were good guys. And I went to sleep. It's about 1 o'clock. I get a knock on the door, and it's the hotel manager. He says, you want to come downstairs? One of your guys is starting to fight in the pool room. and he might have damaged the pool table. And it was Alpo Polino who was playing bass with us at that time. So I said, okay, I went down, got the road manager up, and I said, can you kind of hang, take care of this? He said, okay. I went back to bed. About an hour later, the guy's knocking at the door. I told you once, can you come down and handle these guys, put them to bed or whatever? Because they just peed in the flower pot in the hallway. And I said, really? And he says, you're going to have a bill. I said, just put it on a bill, whatever. Let them take care of it, the company. And finally, about 3 o'clock, after the guy came for the last time, he was going to throw us all out, I rounded them all up and took them into one room. And just kind of like a father, I sat there with my feet up against the door and went to sleep. And they passed out. So I don't know how much the bill was, but it wasn't cheap.
But I'm trying to think of the gigs that you did that I remember. You guys actually played the Western Front, which was a reggae place mostly, but I remember seeing you guys there one time. They had a regular sort of a punky night. It was a way different crowd. It was less weed and more booze.
Yeah, there were a lot of cool clubs around then. There were less bands and more clubs.
Yeah.
So you could make a living gigging, which was great. And then, now there's too many bands and not enough clubs.
Yeah, it's tough to find a space. So let's talk a little bit about the clubs. I always like to hear what people's impressions are where they were playing. Obviously, there's the Rat, and you were like in there early, but then there was like the Space, which I always liked.
Yeah, that was a cool little place.
That was a really cool place. It was, for the people who don't know, it was on the second floor.
Yep.
And it was in the financial district. Which was kind of odd. But Cantones was in the financial district, too.
It was near Cantones.
Yeah, near Cantones.
It had a lot of black lighting in it.
Yeah.
It was just another place to play, cool place to hang. Cantones was great. Kevin Moore, who became our road manager for a while, also, he worked with the Real Kids, too. And the Real Kids and the Eaters kind of had a rehearsal room on the top floor. Kids had it for a while, then we had it. So you could rehearse and then just get in the elevator, bring your equipment down, drag it onto the stage, do it, and then bring it back in the elevator and go back up, party up there. And
Oh, that's hilarious.
yeah, so it was a great place to play.
Then the club was a lot of people played there.
Yeah, that was a great place to play. Love that club, the club.
Then it became Night Stage, I think. Mm-hmm. I always wonder, so I had a friend, he went to see Tom Petty one time at the Paradise we were in college.
Sure.
And he said, I saw Tom Petty, but I'll tell you, this band, the Atlantics, just blew them off the stage. They were better than Petty. And I go, I had seen the Atlantics, and I go, yeah, I can see that. Do you think that ever happened with you guys? I mean, if the recordings that I mean, plus I saw you when I was younger, too. I was blackout drunk half the time, but did bands ever not want to work with you because you brought so much energy and you guys were so good?
It happened to us, yeah. I don't want to say the group because they're a tremendously big group that sold millions of records.
Yep.
But we opened for groups like that at big civic centers, you know, 10,000 people or whatever it was in there. And we just tore it apart. The audience went nuts with the lighters and everything like that. And we knew we were doing really well because about halfway through the set, our volumes went down. The house went down a little bit. The monitors went down a little bit. And we said, okay. And so they patted us on the back when we came back through the dressing room and stuff. Great show, blah, blah, blah. But it was a signal to us to don't wear the audience out.
Yeah.
Calm down. So we got that a few times.
Yeah, you must have been horrible to follow. I mean, I'm serious. If I was in a band that was, playing after you guys, and like, geez, you better turn it up. We would have bring our A game to it because, like you said, that record alone was just. I mean, that recording alone. It's like if you're listening to this and you want to get a really, really good feel for them, one, Eaterville, and two, find that thing on YouTube with Ken Shelton introducing you guys because it's absolutely amazing. So you guys, the record, when the record comes out, it puts a kind of stall in your career, right? It doesn't take off the way that it should have.
Right.
So what happens past that? That's like 78, I think.
Yeah, I took off for a while and went to Chicago and just stayed there for a while. And I remember the manager that we had at the time called me and said, "Come on back to Boston. I can't do anything unless you come back to Boston." And I said, "Well, I don't know, man. Unless you've got another record deal, I don't think much is going to happen. You know, that ship sailed." So that just kind of dissipated. I don't know what really happened with him or whatever. I don't know what the other guys were doing.
What were you doing in Chicago? Just so
I was out there with my girlfriend.
were you playing?
I was working in a recording studio called Pierce Arrow. Groups like Cheap Trick recorded there. And
Oh,
a lot of different groups came in. It originally was the Pierce Arrow automobile factory where they made the
that sounded
Pierce
familiar.
Arrow. Yeah, it was a really cool place. Somebody had a lot of money and sunk a lot of money into that place. It was a gorgeous studio. And I played in town. After a while, my friend from the North Shore, Jose Gonzalez, who was great friends with Buddy Guy and Junior Wells, said, "Listen, dude," he showed up in Chicago and we were hanging out, having a good time. He said, "Listen, you should come back to the North Shore. Lots of stuff going on." So after everything ran its course in Chicago, I came back to the North Shore and hung out with Jose. And we had a great time. And a lot of the great blues players, when they were in town, would stay at his house with his mother and father because they had known him and his family in Spain,
Yeah.
Portugal. They had a bed and breakfast place where they all stayed when they were on tour on the road. So we'd go over to Buddy Guy's house sometimes and hang out. And Buddy had in his basement probably 100 guitars sent to him by different companies.
Yep.
And he'd pull them out and play them, laugh, and he'd throw it back. I said, "Buddy, if you don't want that, I'll take it." "No, man, it's my guitar." "It sure is, and I'm ashamed for asking." And but he settled on that polka dot Strat that he plays today. But Jose has passed away, unfortunately. It's too bad. And so is Tony. And that's how that one went.
So you go back to the North Shore. It's still in the early 80s, probably. What do you do? So the Eaters aren't even together anymore.
No, so I form a new Eaters with...
Can you go back and give me the lineup for the main lineup that you had when in the pre-Electra album, and then who you ended up with in the second iteration?
Well, that was Jeff Wilkinson, Rob Skeen.
Yeah, Rob Skeen on. Just so people
bass.
don't know, yep.
Yeah, bass, and Jonathan Paley on guitar and vocals, and myself. Sometimes Andy played piano and stuff. At the same time that, before the Electra thing happened, Andy got signed to Sire Records. He was tight with the Ramones and everybody at Sire. And the Paley Brothers did the Paley Brothers album, which was great.
Yep.
It was great. And they had a pretty good agent, and they were going to go on the road, opening up for Sean Cassidy. And he formed a band, a large band, to go on the road. And we didn't do a tremendous amount of dates, but the dates we did were gigantic.
Yeah.
And so we practiced with that band for quite a while. And that was Jeff Lass on piano, Eric Rose on guitar, the Eaters. Alan Hebditch was in that band. I'm not sure if Barry Marshall was in that, singing backup.
Barry Marshall was in a band with an Eaters band, or
No.
the
Hey.
band, the Sean Cassidy thing.
Sean Cassidy thing.
Oh,
I
that's
think
funny.
I think he was. I can't remember. He'll call me up and tell me, I'm sure. Jeff Wilkins was the drummer, and Rob was on bass. And so we got a big kick out of doing gigantic stadiums we never would have gotten a chance to do.
Oh, that's must
Like
be awesome.
Madison Square Garden,
Really?
and Toronto Blue Jay Stadium, and World's Fair, and British Vancouver, Columbia. And it was stuff like that. It was really cool.
Playing songs that even though your material's really quite a bit better.
Well, it was totally different.
Yeah.
I mean,
But you're not a teen idol.
it was kind of pop.
Yeah.
And but Andy was a brilliant songwriter, and he wrote with Jonathan, and they came up with a lot of great stuff. It was
Oh,
really,
okay.
it was fun to play, and it sounded great. And Andy went on to be a staff producer for Sire. Unfortunately, Andy passed away recently. It was a real drag. And Jonathan is out in California. He's a medic on like a Paramount
Really?
lot, yeah. Major movie studio medic, and so Andy's he worked with Brian Wilson. Produced tons of groups.
Yeah.
I mean, it's unbelievable the amount of stuff he's done, and you can Wikipedia him, or just Google his name, and
Oh,
what he's.
Paley?
Yeah.
Yeah, Paley Brothers, yeah. Everybody.
He did SpongeBob.
Really?
SpongeBob CD. Yeah. Musical director on it. Probably wrote a lot of the songs too. So
That's a career.
yeah. God bless him.
When you were back playing the Rat, you had like a whole bunch of contemporaries. Who are the guys that you liked? Who are the guys that you played with and really enjoyed their music too?
Groups?
Yeah,
Boston
groups. Yeah, the Boston groups.
Oh, the Real Kids, of course.
Yeah.
The Neighborhoods, which they were just tremendous.
Oh, they were amazing.
They were all three of them was shot out.
No
of a
record.
cannon.
That's just such a killer that they never made the record.
Yeah, well, it might have been a good thing, seeing what happened to everybody else.
Oh, I know.
But Prettiest Girl, that's tremendous.
That's a great song.
Still a good song. And their live shows were infamous.
Oh yeah.
But La Peste was great. Willie. We recorded Mass Ave with Willie, Jeff and Rob and I.
Oh, I did not. I was not aware of that.
Yeah, we backed him up on that. DMZ, Liars.
The Liars, yeah.
And so they were basically the core. Richard Nolan and Third Rail.
Yeah.
He was a scary little guy. And I'm probably leaving a lot of people out, but
So after you do that's still in the 70s. Then the Eaters, you come back to the North Shore. Jose brings you back, and the Eaters really aren't together anymore. So when do you guys reform?
well, I get together then with Walter Gustafsson on drums, and Billy Lecision on guitar, myself, and Brandy Pritchard on bass, and Jonathan Paley played with us as well, and so we get out doing stuff like that, and Billy was on some of the Hot Steel songs, and so we played around for a while. And then after that, the Eaters just started changing different factions of the group, different musicians. And that was about it. I stopped for a while. Got a job at a community college where I work now.
Which one is that?
Cape Cod Community College.
Okay.
I'm an IT guy. And I've been doing that for quite a while.
But so when did you do Monsters and Angels? That was
That was 2022.
Okay, so that was just that was songs that you did. So you were off for a long time, but you guys still did gigs every so often, right?
Yeah, we did, and I never stopped writing.
Yeah.
I have 24 tracks in my basement, so I had a lot of great songs lined up. Well, not great songs, good songs. I think they're good, but the bass player that was playing with us and still is, Brad Helene, sent it to Steven Berkowitz, who was the road manager for the Cars, and he sent it to Steve Van Zandt at Wicked Cool. And the song he sent was End of the World Girl, and he loved it right away. He signed us right the next day. So we started rehearsing all the songs for that, and did that record, and they did another one.
So I saw you guys coming out of COVID. I think you did a thing with Larry Bangor and who was Larry Bangor's? Did you do that show with the Paradise? I can't remember. But then Lenny and I saw the show you did last spring? It was Cheetah Chrome, what's their band? Dead Boys. Dead Boys. That was Dead Boys, and Richard Lloyd was on that bill, and you guys opened up the show. That was a great show.
It was a good show.
Very different. I think you played a lot of newer stuff.
Yeah.
And like Lenny and I said, I remember writing this down the last time, and it said, still making great music. Lenny and I both used the same term last night, mature. It's a different kind of, it's not like crazy punky stuff, but it's like just great rock and roll. People who know how to write and execute great rock and roll songs never forget how to do it, even as they get older. It sounds different, but you can still tell you guys know your craft. So it was a good record. Do you have any favorite songs off of that?
Wild Eyes is a favorite of mine.
What's that about?
I'm just kind of a reporter, reporting on different people's lives, what they're doing, take a piece here, take a piece there, that would create an image in people's mind. So sometimes I just kind of string a story together, but by happenings or events that I've seen. So that's how that happens.
Every day, her mind is a maze. Her thoughts are amazing. She is wild, 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 wild eyes. Well, she moves strangely lazy, unsure, kind of maybe. She is wild, wild, wild.
The next record I hope to do, I'm going back towards the earlier sound of the Eaters. It's a little heavier. So, and I'm still writing songs like that. Like, I'm not sure which album Vampire appeared on, but songs like Vampire.
She loves you so. Valerie's a vampire. No one takes you higher. Ice cold fire. Sundown's uptown. Everybody's going down.
Songs like Wild Eyes. And still writing down in the basement.
Down in the basement where it all started. One thing I should mention, the Nervous Eaters are going to be inducted into the New England Music Hall of Fame with a bunch of people that we were just talking about. The Monkees are on that too, and then Dave Brubeck, the Bristols. If you go online, you can find New England Music Hall of Fame. But they're also going to be maybe playing a gig. It's February 15th, 2025. They're going to be doing the actual induction ceremony, right?
Yeah, at the Vault.
At the Vault?
I haven't been to that club. Shame on me. But you'll have to look it up.
Is that downtown?
No, I think it's in Providence.
Oh, okay. Well, it is New England, not Boston, so.
Right. It's New England.
Okay. So it was great having you on the show. Really appreciate you coming here, and I'm looking forward to hearing you guys again.
Thanks for having me on. It's been great.
All right, thanks, Steve-O.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks for listening to Rat Tales, Boston Rock Stories. Rat Tales is produced and directed by Lenny, Scolletta, and Mike Hoban, with a huge thanks to Medford Community Media in beautiful downtown Medford, Massachusetts.